Hello, and welcome to my channel. I'm Colleen Pearl the Cool Crone, and I will be your astrologer for the full moon in Gemini. The full moon will occur at 4 degrees Gemini, 51 minutes, on November 27th at 4:16 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. This will be a very powerful full moon due to a T-square between Venus conjuncting and opposing the nodes and squaring Pluto. Right there is some powerful energy that will involve women. Now, the connection with Pluto is wide, so I'm guessing we'll feel this a few days prior to the full moon. The Sun is still conjunct Mars as it was during the new moon, but now the Sun is also squaring Saturn, which brings in serious thinking. This creates another T-square in the chart between the Sun, Moon, and Saturn. Jupiter retrograde creates a quincunx with the Sun and a sextile with Saturn. Without the squares to Saturn, I would say that this is positive, but with them, I'll just say that Jupiter is going to expand the whole mess and complicate things. Not only that, but when you have two T-squares, you have unbalanced energy. So things could get a bit messy during this full moon. What we find here is a lot of conflicted energy and a feeling of being blocked in our efforts. Mind you, your efforts may be to try to influence or even manipulate people to buy into your beliefs or your way of life, in which case there's probably a good reason to have that block in place. Think of it as a safety valve for everyone involved. As you listen to the descriptions of the various planetary aspects to this moon, you'll see that if everybody got their way here, we might not like the results. The sign of Gemini is male. It's of the element of air, it's mutable, and it's ruled by the planet Mercury. What are people with moon in Gemini like? Well, they can be charming and quarrelsome, curious and unpredictable, savvy and shallow, kind and callous. People with moon in Gemini often have many hobbies and interests. For instance, they love to talk, so they frequently gravitate towards careers that allow them to do so. Geminis are social. They love to be up on the latest trends, and they often do work with their hands because Mercury rules the hands. Now, what happens when we have a full moon in Gemini? When the moon transits Gemini, we find ourselves craving something quick, and usually that something is a change of pace from our normal everyday patterns. You may be reluctant to share your feelings now, except with those you love and trust. There's that talkative factor, so if you can talk your way through something, you will, and this will make you feel more comfortable as long as you're not talking about your feelings. The quicksilver nature of this mercurial sign may cause you to flit from one person to the next without forming a solid bond, or you may go from one project to the next without finishing any of them. The more you can engage in forms of communication that you love, be it social media or handwriting a journal, the better you will feel during this transiting of moon in Gemini. As usual, I'm going to tell you that at the full moon, we have the sun and the moon across the sky from each other, where they are both beaming their energy full force at the other. This results in a culmination or peak of energy that can't be found at any other time of the month. There's a lot of yin from the moon and yang from the sun energy moving all over the universe. And this forces us to deal with unresolved issues because it allows emotions and our ego to bubble all of this energy up to our consciousness where we can deal with it. That's what we mean by shining a light on the darkness. These unresolved issues, be it a trauma from the past, a trauma with a friend or a person in your life, or just an issue that you've always had, sometimes are easier to deny when the energy is a little lower. But as the energy of the full moon rises and reaches this peak, it brings all of these feelings up to the surface, and that's where we can deal with them. So the full moon is an excellent time to deal with these things. It's great for getting rid of negative patterns and toxic thoughts, because the first step of resolving something like that is to identify it, and that's what the full moon allows you to do. So the full moon is an excellent time for releasing the wasted emotions: guilt, fear, jealousy, and disappointment. Nobody ever benefited from any of these emotions. So try as much as you can to eliminate these feelings from your life. Now let's talk about the retrograde planets. So the 3 retrograde planets we have this month are the ones way, way out in space. We have Jupiter in Taurus, Uranus in Taurus, and Neptune in Pisces. Now, Jupiter and Uranus both being in Taurus, you would think that they would be bumping into each other, but they're not. Jupiter is going to hover around 10 degrees of Taurus, and in its retrograde motion, it's only going to go back to about 7 degrees. Uranus starts its trek at, give me just a minute, 21 degrees of Taurus, and it only moves back to 20 degrees. So it doesn't move hardly at all in the month of November. Neptune is towards the end of Pisces, but it's at 25 degrees, and in its motion, it only goes down to 24. So these larger planets at the outer bounds of our galaxy are not moving very much, and this means that when smaller, quicker moving planets are making aspects to them, actually the aspects may last a little longer, because these planets are almost standing still. And so as the smaller planet approaches, it has an effect, and that effect will stay in place until the smaller planet is a little bit past the orb that we would consider effective for that aspect. And that's what makes them last longer. So what does this mean? This means that the effect of Jupiter, which is to expand things and make them grow and be lucky, well, Jupiter is kind of sleeping right now. So it may grow and expand things that are not actually that beneficial for you, depending upon the planet that's approaching it. Uranus is the planet of eccentricity and chaos. So as you approach aspects with Uranus, you may find that things are returning. They're not unexpected. They're actually things that you're dreading, and they're coming back into your life. With Neptune retrograde, you may find things coming up from your subconscious, and they may be not so pleasant. They may be pleasant and fine, but then you may have a struggle to deal with those things, because things that are coming up from your subconscious very often are things that you do not want to deal with. So that's just a little taste of what might be going on with all of these retrograde planets. Now let's move on to the planetary aspects for the full moon in Gemini. For the first aspect, we have the sun opposition the moon, which is the full moon. Now, sun and moon will both be at 4 degrees 51 minutes, the sun being set in Sagittarius and the moon being in Gemini. On every full moon, we feel the pull or resistance between our egos and individuality versus our emotions and feelings. The conflict caused from this is usually expressed between our family members, and most particularly between us and family members of the opposite sex. The full moon in Gemini highlights the differences between Sagittarius and Gemini. Now, Sag is very direct, optimistic, honest, which can at times be refreshing to witness, but sometimes hurtful because they are so frank in their speech. Gemini is representing our feelings here, the moon, and is curious with a lighter energy than Sag, giving our feelings less depth and a more childlike approach to things going on around us. Also, the curiosity that both signs share can blend harmoniously to create a love of the subjects being discussed. Sun conjunct Mars. Mars is at 2 degrees Sag, 40 minutes. There is so much energy here. The Sun is robust in Sagittarius, but sometimes thoughtless and too impulsive, and certainly the Sun emphasizes the fiery nature of Sagittarius. So it may feel a bit out of control with no guardrails, but rather a lot of enthusiasm for whatever Mars is directing its attention to. Now, Mars in Sagittarius will throw itself equally into a debate or a battle. So this could augur a fight or robust exploration. Sun square Saturn. Saturn's at 0 degrees Pisces, 58. Again, we have this square of the Sun and Saturn, which we have experienced several times in the last few months on a lunation. This is why many of our lunations have had particularly volatile aspects, but did not result in all-out wars or battles, except for the week prior to the solar eclipse, which was the new moon in October, which is when the war between Israel and Hamas broke out. Now, it's not uncommon for eclipse energy to make its mark 1 month, 1 week, or 1 day prior to an event, and so it was in this case. But truly, there has been so much volatile energy surrounding the last few months' lunations that I'm just not surprised that some kind of conflict actually occurred. Thank goodness for Saturn in Pisces, who is going to demand kindness, compassion, and action from the rest of the world. And during this time, we could also have a different kind of battle taking place. Pisces represents foreign places and things, also secrets, our subconscious, manipulation, fantasy, and delusion. So, we could be ignorant of what is going on behind the scenes. There could be a lot of negotiations taking place behind closed doors, and it could be directed by delusional individuals who are manipulating those around them. In other words, a lot of gaslighting could be going on that we don't even know about. Moon opposite Mars. So Mars, again, is at 2 degrees Sag, 40 minutes, and the moon is at 4 Gemini, 51. The pressure we feel from moon opposition Mars causes us to react in many ways, and most of them are not so nice. Now, some of us may just be very tense and lash out verbally towards others, but some can completely cave into this and feel very, very pressured about and become ruthless in their quest to alleviate their own pressure. Now, this may cause them to place pressure on others. This aspect is very likely to bring out the manipulation from the Gemini moon and the aggressive behavior of Mars and Sagittarius. Moon square Saturn. Saturn again is at 0 degrees Pisces, 58. Repressing our emotions is the classic result of the moon square Saturn. But let's look at the signs involved here. The moon in Gemini does not express things emotionally, except in a slightly superficial way. The moon in Gemini is more likely to get wrapped up in what they like and express joy when they get what they want. Also, when speaking with others, they'll express happiness and joy about others, but they do not express deep emotions that reflect what they are feeling. Saturn in Pisces, which is a very emotional sign, is reined in by Saturn, but will still express compassion and try to create structures that will help the less fortunate. Saturn in Pisces is also the devotee, who is very disciplined in their daily or religious habits. These two planets in these signs would seem to create a situation where some may pretend to be impressed or influenced by an organization or structure that promises to help others, but the interest would be insincere. So I'm thinking that during this full moon, along with the gaslight of the previous aspect, there will be more fake support for whatever's being offered by those in authority. Moon trine Pluto. Pluto is at 28 degrees Capricorn 25, and the moon at 4 degrees Gemini 51 is not the traditional trine. Usually a trine will involve planets that are in signs of the same element, like Gemini to Aquarius, or Gemini to Libra, which are both air signs. But in this instance, the moon is at very early degrees of Gemini, trining Pluto, which is at very late degrees of Capricorn, which is an earth sign. So right off the bat, you do not have a nice blending or mesh of the energies of either planet or sign. What it will do is really ramp up emotions and cause people to be very, very intense in their beliefs. Opinions may cause quarrels and conflicts, but here again, we have the threat of manipulation, controlling others, and even psychological warfare, something we haven't spoken about much since the Cold War. Now, Moon in Gemini is fairly unemotional, and coupled with the intensity of Pluto, which is still in Capricorn, this could cause certain organizations or even individuals to behave with cold and calculating cruelty. Gemini and Capricorn do have that in common. Both of them are capable of being extremely cold. The headlines will tell some of the story, but we may not know about any of these shenanigans until much, much later. Mercury sextile Venus. Mercury is at 24 degrees Sag 40, and Venus is at 21 degrees Libra 22. Now, Mercury in Sagittarius sextile Venus in Libra brings about some devastating charm. You'll witness and perhaps be the recipient of an extreme charm offensive from someone. It'll mostly be harmless, but you should be aware that we will all be susceptible to this overload of charm and politeness during the full moon in Gemini. Now, couple that with the manipulation and gaslighting of the other aspects, and what do you get? Matt Gaetz and Kevin McCarthy. That's a joke. All right. Mercury square Neptune. Neptune is at 24 degrees Pisces 54. This aspect could actually end up being healthy for the U.S. It's possible that the combination of Sagittarius and Pisces could cause many people to wake up from their cult coma and begin to see the truth of their situation. Of course, this could also bring even more lies and deception when people feel cornered by their previous lies and deception. So, I hope that the first premise is what takes place, but I'm realistic enough to know that some of the latter premise will also be happening. Mars square Saturn. Mars at 2 degrees Sag 40 and Saturn at 0 degrees Pisces 58. This aspect will show certain individuals giving up and abandoning projects due to obstacles that they perceive are getting in their way. Now, whether this is true or not, no amount of badgering is going to make these people finish what they start. Both planets are in mutable signs, which can be notorious for not getting things done. Hopefully, these individuals can use this as an opportunity to learn a lesson about taking on unrealistic tasks or something like that. Now, on to Mars sextile Pluto. Pluto again is at the end of Capricorn, 28 degrees, and Mars is at 2 degrees Sag 40. And the power of Mars is given a super boost from Pluto, even though they're in signs that don't usually result in a sextile aspect. Mars is at the very beginning of Sag, and Pluto is at the very end of Capricorn. Again, we have this non-blending of energies happening between these two planets, even though it is a harmonious aspect. This will influence people who are sensitive to this aspect to gain control over themselves, but also to gain control over others, which, manipulation. So you may find a few individuals actually wrapping up a long-term project, but don't be surprised if they are having other people do their dirty work. This will be an interesting one to watch. Now, Venus is in opposition to the North Node and conjunct the South Node. Venus is at 21 degrees Libra 22. The South Node is also at the same degree except for 42 minutes, and the North Node is at 22 degrees Aries 42. So when we involve the nodes, the North Node is the beginnings of something, and the South Node is the ending of something. So this one can indicate the end of a relationship. And coupled with the influence of Pluto, this can be pretty intense and powerful. This could also foreshadow the end of a relationship pattern. Now, as I look at the chart of the U.S. overlaid with this full moon, I can see that Venus is falling in the 10th house for the U.S., which could indicate females, but also highly public, highly visible females, or female allies, or even female countries. I'm going to say that the U.S. will be saying goodbye to the way we relate to a female or a female country. So given that this is happening on a full moon and covering the 10th house of the U.S. chart, it's going to be very public and very highly visible. So it's going to be in the news. Neptune sextile Pluto. This is that very friendly diplomatic aspect that has been in effect through all of 2023. This is harmonious energy that helps the diplomats and lawmakers to create peace treaties, win-win resolutions, and transformations on a global scale. And I'm just going to say, to help put your mind at ease, that this energy is helping diplomats behind the scenes to really forge transformative peace treaties. And that's why they're taking so long, and that's why we're not hearing about them very much. They will succeed in this, but it is taking a long time. For instance, on the Ukraine front, even in talking to Iran and China and now Israel and Hamas, it's going to take a long time, but they are going to be lasting treaties for peace. All right, moving on. So, who do we know who was born on a full moon in Gemini? Well, while I wait for all of you to go and Google it, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you. It is Julianne Moore, the American actress, and she was born on December 3rd, 1960. Here is her chart. Julianne Smith, known professionally as Julianne Moore, is an American actress. Prolific in film since the early 1990s, she is particularly known for her portrayals of emotionally troubled women in independent films, as well as for her roles in blockbusters. And if you guys can't tell, I'm just reading this from her Wikipedia page. She is the recipient of numerous accolades, including an Academy Award, a BAFTA Award, 2 Golden Globe Awards, and 2 Emmy Awards. Because of her father's occupation, Moore frequently moved around the United States as a child. She was close with her family as a result, but says she never had the feeling of coming from one particular place. The family lived in multiple locations, including Alabama, Georgia, Texas, Panama, Nebraska, Alaska, New York, and Virginia. And Moore attended 9 different schools. That's a lot. The constant relocating made her an insecure child, and she struggled to establish friendships. In spite of these difficulties, Moore later remarked that an itinerant lifestyle was beneficial to her future career. When you move around a lot, she says, you learn that behavior is mutable. I would change depending on where I was. It teaches you to watch, to reinvent, that character can change. When Moore was 16, the family moved from Falls Church, Virginia, where Moore was attending Justice High School, to Frankfurt, West Germany, where she attended Frankfurt American High School. She was clever and studious, self-proclaimed good girl, and she planned to become a doctor. She'd never considered performing or even attended the theater, but she was an avid reader, and it was this hobby that led her to begin acting at school. Moore appeared in several plays, including Tartuffe and Medea, and with the encouragement of her English teacher, she chose to pursue a theatrical career. Her parents supported her decision, but asked that she train at university to provide the added security of a college degree. She was accepted into Boston University and graduated in 1983 with a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Theater. And as I've said numerous times on my videos, people who are born on a full moon very often do really well in the eyes of the public, and they often pursue careers that put them in the public eye. This is because with the energy of the moon opposite the sun in their charts, they really understand human nature, and in particular, they understand the other. They understand that they are not the only being in this universe. They understand that other people also have their own situations, and it seems like she really got that loud and clear in her childhood. All right, so that is Julianne Moore, and she was born with a full moon in Gemini. Although she wasn't born at the exact time of the full moon, she was definitely born on the day of the full moon, because as you can see, the sun and the moon are directly opposite one another in her chart. But actually, by degree, they're 9 degrees apart, which is about the widest you can get to still consider it an opposition. All right, so now we're going on to predictions for each sign. And the first sign up is Aries. So Aries, this puts the moon in your 3rd house for communications and the sun in the 9th house. So you're going to feel a bit of wanderlust, or you may decide that you want to start learning something new, maybe a new language or something. But with the moon in your 3rd house, you're also going to have interactions with siblings or neighbors during this full moon. And the interactions may be pretty emotional. You may have some difficulty discussing things with them. But because it is the Gemini-Sagittarius axis, even if you have a disagreement, it will be smoothed over rather quickly. Having the moon in your 3rd house very often will make us think about childhood. And so you may be reflecting back into your childhood when you think about the conversations that you're having. So whether it's a positive or a negative conversation that you have to resolve, it will reflect back to something that has happened to you in your childhood. The sun in the 9th house may give you the idea that you want to learn something about foreign cultures, or you want to travel, or you just want to take a trip in general, maybe not even that far of a trip, but that you just want to change locations to change your environment in some way. It's also a time where you might think about publishing things like a book or starting a YouTube channel, something out in social media. You could also just be questioning your own religious beliefs during this time and really taking a look at your own philosophies in life and how you are reflecting them by the actions in your life. Now let's move on to Taurus. So Taurus, this full moon will fall across your 2nd to your 8th houses. That puts the moon in your 2nd house and the sun in your 8th. So with the sun in the 8th house, this puts a focus on other people's money, specifically if we are partnered with another person, the money we share with that person. This can also put an emphasis on taxes or insurance policies or legal payouts. Other money, big money, the mortgage, the 401k, a home equity loan, big money that's coming to you. That's why I mentioned legal cases with settlements that might pay out. That kind of big money is usually shared with you and your partner, and it usually is controlled or thought of in the 8th house. The moon being in your 2nd house is where you're emotional or feeling a little insecure about your own income. So the 2nd house isn't just about money and income, though. It is really about your own resources, your talents. What do you use in order to bring home a paycheck? What kind of talents do you have? What kind of resources you have? So you're thinking about the use of your resources, and then you're also thinking about the big money in your life, which you may be sharing with other people. Now, there may be a lack on both ends, or you may have plenty on both ends, but the focus of this full moon will surely have you attending to or paying attention to both things. Let's go on to Gemini. Now, this is your full moon, Gemini. That puts the moon in your 1st house and the sun in your 7th house. And even though it's your full moon and a lot of your little squishy feelings are going to be happening in the 1st house for you, you're also going to have a big focus on your partner. Whether you have a partner or not, partners that you work with, partners that you have love with, partners that you have some sort of project with, they're all going to be emphasized during this full moon. So the moon in the 1st house puts a focus where you might feel a little bit insecure, and you may decide, well, it's a great time for a makeover, or it's a great time to get a new hairstyle, or a new pair of glasses or something that changes your appearance in some way. And Geminis are really, really attracted to trends. So you might be thinking, oh, my coat really looks dated or my bag really looks dated. And you may focus on those little things because Gemini, being the third sign in the zodiac, is looking at smaller things. Also, Gemini and Mercury are really focused on the hands. So things that you hold, like a purse, or things that you work with, like pens and pencils, or even a pair of glasses. These are things that might grab your attention when the moon is going through your first house, in order for you to sidestep thinking about how you really feel out in the public. Have you gained weight? Have you lost weight? Is your makeup looking dated? Do you need to update that? Gemini can be very cognizant of the way they look and yet very not cognizant of the way they look. I know a lot of people who are Gemini that don't really care how they look. They just are really curious about the world and curious about what they're doing, and their looks and appearance are really secondary. Or you may be the kind of Gemini where that means a lot to you. It depends on where your planets are placed in your chart. With the sun in the 7th house, like I said, you are going to have some emphasis on your partner. So you're going to find that your partner may be a bit needy at this time, and yet you are needy as well. So this might be a bit of a conundrum. Fortunately, Gemini, you're quick on your feet. You're able to handle lots of things all at the same time. So I don't think this is going to be a big problem for you, but just don't ignore your partner. Just make sure that you do pay some attention to them. And now on to Cancer. Cancer, this puts the moon in your 12th house and the sun in your 6th. And this may be one of your fun full moons during the year. When the moon is in your 12th house, Cancer, your intuition goes bananas. So you're super, super intuitive during this full moon, and yet the moon is in Gemini. So things are moving quick. The energy is light, and that's why you like it, Cancer, because for you, having the full moon in your first house, which is coming up for you, is kind of heavy. It's a lot. It's very emotional. It's like almost too much. When it's in the 12th house, even though for most people the moon in the 12th house is like, oh, I don't want to think about, the habits I have to change, or I don't want to think about, my dead Aunt Grace or whatever. For most people, the moon in the 12th house does seem like kind of a heavy thing because it brings up the past and the subconscious and self-sabotage and things they need to fix. But for you, it lightens the mood. So you've got the sun in the 6th house, which is work, which Cancer, for most of the Cancers that I know, doing a job, going to work, doing the regular routine is just not a big deal to them. They just do it. They know they have to do it, so they just do it. But the moon in the 12th house makes things kind of fun for you because, like I said, your intuition is turned up to a 12, and you might like that. You might just really enjoy that, Cancer. So that's what I have for you. And now we're going to move on to Leo. Leo, this is putting the moon in your 11th house and the sun in your 5th house. So this is a great time for you to interact with groups. The sun in your 5th house means that you're ready to have fun. Fun with kids maybe, or sports, or games of chance of some kind, or starting a love affair. That could even happen during this full moon. But the moon in the 11th house means that you're going to be exposed to maybe new groups, but different groups, maybe a few different groups, because the moon is changeable. So having the moon there in the 11th house, also, just because you are a Leo, means you probably will be nominated for a leadership position, or maybe you want to do a leadership position of some kind in one or more of these groups. And you're really good at that, Leo. You're really good at managing people. So stepping into a leadership role is kind of like natural for you. It's like, water rolling off a duck's back. It just is no big deal for you. But know that you're also going to feel a little insecure about taking on this role because the moon usually highlights our insecurities for us. Having the moon in Gemini there, Leo, means that you'll be able to handle things no problem. The Gemini moon there will allow you to kind of take a step back and not look at things so seriously for once and keep things a little bit lighter, a little bit more superficial. But also in the sign of the twins, you'll be able to handle multiple projects pretty easily. So I think this is going to be a good full moon for you, Leo. I think it's going to be fun. I think you'll enjoy the energy. I think everyone pretty much will enjoy enjoy the lighthearted energy of the Gemini full moon. But I think for you with groups, that's something you really love, Leo. You love to be the center of attention, and stepping into a group, leading the group, but not having to take things super, super seriously just sounds like a great time for you. Okay, on to Virgo. So Virgo, this full moon falls in your 10th house with the sun in the 4th house. So you will have some things that you have to attend to having to do with your actual home, the real estate of your home, the property that it's on, and the building that is your home. And this means that this could be a time where you're looking for maybe getting more money in your job so that you can, afford to like put on an addition to the house or redecorate something or do like major renovations in one area of your house. Maybe not the whole house, or maybe you're going to sell and move. And so you're going to acquire a new house. So a lot of those things can come up during a full moon where the sun is sitting in your 4th house. Now, having the moon in your 10th house does mean that there's going to be an emphasis also on your career or what you do that is out in the public. So with the Gemini moon, which is really good for you, Virgo, because it's also mutable, when that's sitting up in your 10th house, this means that you're going to be able to be noticed by higher ups. It means that you're going to be appreciated by the public or the higher ups or both in your career. So it's an excellent time for you to push for a promotion or a raise or even a new job. So this is a good full moon for you, Virgo. It shouldn't be a tough one for you at all. But, depending on your chart, there may be things in there that conflict. But generally, it's a mutable moon and you're a mutable sign. So you should enjoy the energy. Also, with Gemini, this Gemini energy is so great because no one has to take things so seriously. We can have this lighthearted, almost superficial energy of social niceties and charm and happiness. And don't forget all of those aspects that I talked about, that charm offensive that is going to be on there. So this is a great time to be doing job interviews and impressing people, chatting up people that you don't know very well. So Virgo, if this is, kind of like the bane of your existence, like you hate meeting new people, you hate doing interviews, something like that, then this Gemini moon is the perfect time for you to do it. This does square your rising sign. However, I think you can use this mutable, lighthearted Gemini energy to get where you need to go. So just keep that in mind. Squares don't have to make things impossible. They do have the energies sort of mushing against one another. So you do So you do have to know how to use the energy. And in this case, it is to just push smoothly through the energy. Don't stop and think about it too much, Virgo. Just kind of use the energy, kind of go with what is ever going on with the energy and don't question it too much. Okay, now we're going on to Libra. So Libra, this full moon is falling in your 9th house and the sun is going to be in your 3rd house. So it's the opposite from Aries for you. So this means that you may have a little bit of insecurity having to do with what is out on the internet and social media, or, something having to do with other cultures or other countries. Could also have to do with, maybe you have a book that you're trying to publish and you may be worried about the deadlines for that. The 9th house also rules things on the internet, but specifically social media, because it's an outgrowth of the 3rd house, which is where we have our childhood learning, childhood education, and also communications, just the basis of communications. Now you've got the sun there, Libra, in your 3rd house. So your communications are strong, but you may have some insecurities about putting the communications out there on social media. And I'm going to tell you, the moon in Gemini is going to be excellent for this. That Gemini energy works so well with Libra. You're both air signs. And that Gemini energy is also a tad bit superficial, which Libra actually really appreciates. Because Libra, when you get too into someone and understanding someone and you get too connected emotionally with someone, it's difficult for you and it's wearing on you. If you can keep things just a tad bit superficial, it's much easier for you to pour on the charm and to make everything work. And remember what I said about the aspects earlier before I did the predictions. There is a huge energy of charm and of schmoozing people. Now, you don't have to manipulate people, but the schmoozing aspect is great. So if you're trying to impress someone, or you're trying to put forward a book for publication, or you're trying to start a new channel on YouTube, or you're trying to start new accounts in social media for anything, a business or a charity or a GoFundMe or whatever you're trying to do, the charm that is in the air right now, Libra, you can really capitalize on that and use it to the fullest extent. And the sun in the third house is going to allow your communications to be very strong and very clear. So all good things, Libra. I think this is a really good moon for you, and I think you're going to have fun with it. And then we come to Scorpio. So Scorpio, this moon is in your 8th house for other people's money, and the sun is in the 2nd house for your money, the money you earn. Now let's talk about the 2nd house first. So this is the opposite of Taurus. With the sun in the 2nd house, you are definitely looking at your income streams. You are maybe being rewarded in some way, maybe getting a raise or something like that, or just maybe there's some unexpected money coming into the coffers that you didn't really plan on. Bonus. Nice. This in the Scorpio, you love this. This is like, yes, thank you. Give me more. So the 2nd house is not just money. It is your talents and resources. And I know a lot of Scorpios who just say, hey, there is money everywhere. You just have to reach out and take it. Well, is that really good attitude in life? Isn't that just a wee bit manipulative? Maybe, maybe not. They're Scorpios. They have a lot of power and a lot of energy. So let's not judge. But having the sun in your 2nd house, excellent time to start a second stream of income. So if you have some bright idea that could bring you some extra cash, Scorpio, now is the time to implement it. Now, with the moon in the 8th house, it would be a good time to implement it probably with a partner. And that means that your partner, that's the 8th house, the shared money of you and a partner, that's the 8th house, is going to be very receptive and also very helpful. So Gemini moon sitting in your 8th house means that you've got someone on your side who is really agile, who has light, quick social energy that can cause your 8th house investments, things having to do with your taxes, things having to do with any kind of big money in your life, the mortgage in your life, the home equity line of credit, the 401k, the investments, the mutual funds. All of those things will get a big beneficial boost when the moon is in the 8th house, and that's due to your partner, I think. So good moon for you, Scorpio, as far as investments and money go. Don't pass it up. I mean, we do have these full moons once a year, but you need to take advantage of them. You can't just sit back and be like, okay, that's just going to happen. But Scorpio, that's not you. You usually do take advantage of it. So I'm not too worried about you. So in this case, let's move on to Sagittarius. So Sagittarius, this moon is falling in your 7th house, and the sun will be in your 1st house. So this is a glorious moon for you, Sag. Who doesn't love having the sun transiting their 1st house? And then the moon in the 7th house means that you are thinking about your partner, thinking about your partnership, thinking about your whole relationship spectrum of your life. And the sun in the 1st house makes you feel like $1,000,000. And Sagittarius just love this. They love to feel like they're on top, like they're winning, like they're very strong, like everything is going great for them. And then the moon in the 7th house is just kind of a bonus. You remember the song? When the moon is in the 7th house, right? Well, Jupiter hasn't aligned with Mars, but we do have the moon in the 7th house. And this is a beautiful thing. You can attract love now. You can enhance the relationship that you're in, but you do have to give it some thought, Sag. And with this full moon in Sagittarius, the Gemini Sagittarius energy can be, frankly, thoughtless. So you do need to kind of point your attention on your partner and make nice, right? Although you may love your new hairstyle, think about your partner. Is your partner feeling like, well, what do they have a new hairstyle for? Are they going to go find somebody new? Make sure you reassure your partner. Make sure that you do something that reaffirms your commitment in your relationship and kind of zhuzhes up the relationship a little bit. That's what you really need right now, Sagittarius. So with this moon, take advantage of that energy because you've got it. With this moon in Gemini, it's excellent energy for you to really zhuzh up your relationship, reaffirm, confirm that you and your partner are committed and that things are right and that you really appreciate them. All those things. Okay, Sag? So take my advice. You'll be glad you did. All right, let's move on to Capricorn. Capricorn, you have the moon in your 6th house, the sun in your 12th house. So for you, this is kind of the opposite of what Cancer had. Sun in your 12th house is a little bit uncomfortable for you. So you're thinking about things you really don't want to think about. You're thinking about your subconscious. You're maybe having dreams that are, a little weird, but it's the sun. It's not the moon in your 12th house. It's the sun. And so this is more more your ego, more personal for you. When you're looking at the sun in the 12th house, you may be feeling that you're not enough, that you're doing something that's really causing you to not progress the way you want to progress. So sun in the 12th house, that's the time to explore that stuff, to look at that stuff. Are you in therapy? Maybe you want to go into therapy just for a few sessions and see if you can shake this out. Now, the moon sitting in your 6th house will also make you feel a little insecure at work and a little bit feeling like, oh, what's going to happen? Now, I got to tell you, when the moon transits one's 6th house, this usually means changes to your daily routine, changes to your health routine, changes having to do with your pets, and changes having to do with your job, the relationships in your job. So when you see the moon transiting the 6th house, that's when we all feel a little insecure and feel like, uh-oh, is my job going to change? Am I going to lose my job? Am I going to have to get a new job? When the moon is in the 6th house is when things do change on jobs for most of us. But the sun in the 12th house, Capricorn, you're usually very strong, very sure of yourself. But when the sun is in Sagittarius, this is also the time of year where you just feel slightly unsure of what's happening because the sun hasn't come up to be in Capricorn yet. So you've got about a month here where you have to recalibrate. Now, this can be used to your benefit. And for all signs, when the sun is going through your 12th house, this is the time of year, just prior to your birthday or your solar return, when you should be reevaluating the past year. You should be looking at your life for the next 12 months ahead and making decisions, making plans, setting goals. Now, Capricorn, you're probably really good at this, and you probably don't really need me to tell you to do this. But if you're feeling a little bit insecure, a little bit like you don't know what to do, that's why you have to sit down and look at things, analyze things, and then make some decisions. All right, Capricorn. So this is going to be a good moon for you. A little uncomfortable for you. The energy is not quite what you would like it to be, but you can work with this. And this is here on purpose because right before your solar return is when you need to do this self-evaluation. All right, let's move on to Aquarius. Aquarius, the moon is going to be in your 5th house and the sun in the 11th, just the opposite from the sign of Leo, which is your opposite sign. The sun in the 10th house is so fun. You love the sun in the 10th house, in the 11th house, because it means people, it means groups. It means that you're going to probably be, if not the center of attention, then you're going to be just enjoying what is going around in that group. So group activities really emphasized for you, having a great time, interacting with people. You're probably going to meet some new people too with this moon because you're an air sign and Gemini is also an air sign. Now, the sun in Sagittarius is in sextile to your Aquarius rising. So this is a really good time for you. Very social, very happy, a little bold, a little more out there and out of control than you usually are in social settings. Now, the moon in the 5th house means that you are going to be a little bit maybe reluctant to take risks when it comes to things like, dealing with children or playing sports or gambling or anything like that. You might be a little reticent to do that because this is where you might be feeling like you should be more conservative. But the moon's in Gemini, and some of those impulses are pushing you towards doing the very thing that you're worried about doing, which is gambling or taking a chance or even starting a love affair. So you're going to find this push me, pull you energy between groups, and then you'll meet somebody in the group and you'll be like, I can't start an affair, I'm married or whatever. So just watch that energy and realize that it's going to feel good, Aquarius, but a full moon only lasts 2.5 days. And that's what you have to tell yourself when that moon in the 5th house is showing up with some insecurities about taking risks. It's causing you to question taking a risk for a reason, Aquarius. So even though the sun in Sag is making you feel like you can do everything and you can, leap tall buildings in a single bound, you can't. You're not Superman. So pull back just a little bit, but enjoy the group activity. Enjoy the fun of the group activity, Aquarius. You deserve a little fun once in a while. All right, and finally we have Pisces. The moon will be in the 4th house for you, Pisces, with the sun in the 10th. So moon sitting in the 4th house means that things are a little bit changeable for you in your domestic situation. So you may find that people are coming and going. You may find people moving out of your house or moving into your house. You may be having additions to the family, like a new pet, a new child, a new relative coming to live with you. And you may find that that is a little uncomfortable and you have to adjust to it. So you got the moon squaring your rising sign. So yes, there's going to be some periods of uncomfortability here, Pisces, but just go with it. That Gemini energy is energy that you can work with. It's also mutable energy. And Pisces, as a mutable sign, you know that you have to, kind of adapt and roll with it a lot of times in your life, because if you're a typical Pisces rising, you're probably not the person who's starting new things. The sun being in your 10th, though, bonus, means that you're probably going to be up for some sort of a promotion or new job or accolades, or just being, rewarded in some other way, maybe just recognition of a job well done. But it's going to be a good month for you as far as your career and job go. Just know that the domestic situation is probably going to be changeable and you may be a little worried about it, but don't fret. That Gemini energy is a little destabilizing for you, Pisces, but it will resolve. And realize it's just 2.5 days. And so once the moon moves on to Cancer, it's going to feel so much more calm for you, because that's another water sign, and that's where your happy place. That's where you feel like, oh, okay, that's good. Plus it'll move into your 5th house, which is the fun house for you. So that's what I have for all of the signs. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing. Please leave me a comment. I really, really like that, or give me a thumbs up. Love and light to everybody out there. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving. I hope you enjoy this full moon to the max, and I will see you next time.